The night before, Graham Wexler grabbed my wrist hard enough to leave a mark and told me to stop talking unless spoken to. Right there in front of the entire analytics team, before anyone could blink, he hurled his coffee across the table. It hit my shoulder, slid down my blouse, and burned like fire. I did not scream. I did not push back. I did not cry. I stayed silent. And in that silence, he convinced himself he had finally broken me. He had no idea that silence was the doorway to everything that came next. By morning, I walked into our office on the 40th floor with a fresh cup of coffee balanced in my hand. Graham liked it a very specific way: dark roast, oat milk. 1 pump hazelnut, and I made it without a tremor. I stepped into his office and set it on his desk. He leaned back in his leather chair, smiling like he had won something. So you finally know your place. Marena. I kept my head lowered, letting my hair fall forward, letting him see whatever he wanted to see. My voice came out steady. Your morning briefing is printed and ready. He nodded, pleased with himself. Good. We have that meeting in a bit. Bring the updated figures. I told him. He took a long sip of the coffee. He never noticed how calm I was, how measured, how unlike the woman he thought he had crushed the night before. Because in exactly 12 minutes, Graham Wexler would walk down the hall into a meeting room he thought was reserved for his routine strategy review. Instead, he would find the people he feared most, the head of corporate HR, 2 ethics investigators, and the former employees he believed he had silenced for good. They were there because I invited them, and because of what he did last night. Every one of them agreed to listen. I stepped out of his office, closing the door behind me without a sound. My pulse stayed even, controlled. I had waited 3 years for this moment, and it had finally begun. I walked toward my desk, knowing exactly where this would lead next. I did not walk into Cascade Solar Engineering Planning to become anyone's assistant. I was hired as a project analyst, excited to work on clean energy models and long-term efficiency forecasting. That lasted exactly 3 weeks. Graham Wexler showed up at my cubicle one morning, tapped the edge of my monitor, and said, "You're with me now. I need someone who actually listens." I remember blinking at him. I thought I was assigned to the Whitmore account. "You are reassigned," he cut in. "Move your things." That was the beginning. Working for him meant absorbing every outburst he felt entitled to unleash. During meetings, he pointed at me instead of answering questions. "She'll fix it," he would say, even when he was the one who had missed a deadline. One afternoon, a junior engineer named Devin left a conference room shaking. Graham had screamed at him during a client call, accusing him of sabotaging an account worth $400,000. Devin sent me a short message that night. I quit. I'm not doing this another day. I understood the feeling, but I stayed. When I discovered Graham had presented 3 of my proposals as his own ideas, I worked on late at night while caring for my mother's medications. I confronted him quietly. "These designs are mine," I said. He closed his laptop with a sharp click. "They belong to Cascade. Try remembering that if you want to keep paying those medical bills." His voice carried enough threat to keep me silent. Later that year, I opened my inbox and found an anonymous message: "Run before he ruins you." No signature, no explanation, just that warning. I should have left. I knew it. But my mother needed treatment, and insurance through Cascade was the only thing keeping her stable. So I swallowed everything for 3 long years: his temper, his insults, his lies, until the night he put his hand on my wrist and hurled that coffee across the table. That was the moment something in my chest finally snapped. I knew the next step would not be quiet. I made it home before the shaking finally started. My blouse was still damp from the coffee, and when I peeled it off, the fabric tugged against the tender skin on my shoulder. The sting was sharp, but it was nothing compared to the humiliation running hot under my ribs. My phone buzzed once, a calendar reminder I ignored, and I opened my laptop. The screen lit up the kitchen table, and for a long moment, I just stared at the folder I had named for later nearly 2 years ago. I clicked it. Rows of files appeared: screenshots of late-night messages from Graham, recordings of him snapping at staff, timestamps of every time he forced me to take responsibility for his missed deadlines. I had collected each piece quietly. Unsure what I would ever do with them, I opened one document and froze. It was an archived HR complaint, not mine. The name belonged to a former financial analyst. The note said she accused Graham of hostile conduct, At the bottom, the resolution read, "Issue closed, no action needed." I opened another, different employee, same wording, same dismissal. My stomach tightened. I pressed record on a new file and spoke quietly. "Tonight?" Graham Wexler grabbed my wrist and threw coffee at me in front of the team. He told me to stay silent. My voice trembled, but I kept going, detailing every moment I could remember. When I finished, I didn't hit send. I knew HR would bury this the same way they buried the others. Instead, I opened an encrypted messaging app and typed to the only person I could trust, Elliot Fraser, the ethics investigator I'd met at a clean energy panel last spring. "I need to speak with you. It's urgent." He replied within minutes. "Alaskan Way Pier. Dawn, come alone." I closed the laptop, leaned back in my chair, and exhaled slowly. For the first time in 3 years, I felt the edge of fear loosen its grip. By morning, the burn on my shoulder had faded to a dull throb, but the memory of Graham's hand on my wrist was clear as ice. I walked straight to Human Resources before he even arrived. The HR director, Linda Parson, gestured me into her office without looking up from her screen. "What happened last night?" she asked, still typing. Graham grabbed me. He threw his coffee at me. The entire team saw it. She finally glanced up. "Are you sure you're not interpreting the situation emotionally? He has been under extreme pressure with the federal contract." I stared at her. "That doesn't excuse physical aggression." Linda folded her hands, her tone smoothing out. "Marena? Graham's workload is heavy. He can be abrupt, but we need to consider context before escalating anything." "There was no context," I said quietly. He grabbed me. She sighed, opened a new document on her screen, and clicked her pen. "Let's just get this written up. We can handle it internally." As I spoke, she nodded, typed, nodded again. But at one point, when she thought I wasn't watching, she highlighted the entire draft, held down backspace, and then deliberately clicked save. My pulse jumped. "Did you just delete that?" She smiled, too quickly. "Just cleaning formatting. Nothing to worry about." Her voice was calm, but her eyes avoided mine. "Marena," she continued, sliding a folder toward me, "it would be best if you signed this confidentiality agreement. It prevents unnecessary escalation and keeps the workplace stable." My fingers didn't move. "I'm not signing anything." Her expression cooled. "Think carefully. Graham is a high-value leader. Making accusations without evidence can jeopardize your position." I stood. "I have enough evidence." As I walked out of her office, my phone vibrated. A message glowed on the screen. "Meet me on the pier near Alaskan Way. Do not speak to anyone else. Elliot." I exhaled slowly, realizing exactly what Linda had confirmed without meaning to. Horizon would not protect me. I would have to protect myself. Elliot waited near the pier railings with his hands shoved into his coat pockets. When I reached him, his expression tightened. "You are not the first person Graham has done this to," he said. "You need to hear from the others." He led me to a quiet cafe a block away. 3 people were already inside, sitting at a small table pushed into the corner. Elliot introduced them one by one. "This is Nina. She was a data scientist here 2 years ago." Nina gave me a faint smile. Her fingers tapped nervously on her cup. I had panic attacks every time Graham raised his voice. He called me incompetent during a client demo, and I left that night. No exit interview. I just left. Next was a former manager named Aaron. He sat stiffly, every movement measured. Graham bullied me for months. He said, called me weak, told me I did not deserve my position. HR said I should let go of the past if I wanted a reference. So I left Seattle entirely. The third was a young woman with a thin scar above her eyebrow. "I am Kelsey," she said quietly. He slammed a door during an argument. I was standing in the wrong place. Something inside me twisted. Why does no one know about this? Aaron pulled out his phone and slid it across the table. Because of things like this. A recording played. Graham's voice, sharp and cold, filled the space. "If you ever cross me again, I will end your career in this industry. Do you understand? You do not walk away from me." Nina swallowed hard. "He hides everything behind performance awards and glowing reports." Kelsey added, "HR protects him. Everyone else learns to disappear." The weight of their stories settled heavily on my shoulders. Elliot leaned toward me. "Document everything. Do not confront him. And wait until I tell you. We only get one chance to do this right." I nodded. but the decision had already taken shape inside me. I needed Graham in the meeting room at the perfect moment, and he had to believe I had surrendered completely. I arrived before sunrise, long before anyone else would think to show up. The office was silent, the kind of silence that used to make me feel trapped. This morning, it felt like a held breath. I walked straight to the break room and prepared Graham's coffee exactly as he liked it. Double roast, oat milk, 1 pump hazelnut. My hands did not tremble, not once. When he entered his office, he tossed his coat onto the chair and barely looked at me. I set the cup on his desk. He smirked the moment he tasted it. So you finally know your place. I lowered my gaze, letting my voice soften. Your morning coffee, just the way you prefer it. Good, he said, leaning back. We have a full schedule, so stay on top of things today. I will. He did not notice the calm in my tone. He did not notice the faint mark on my wrist or the steadiness in my breathing. He saw exactly what he wanted to see, submission. As I stepped out of his office, my phone buzzed. I pulled it close to my body and checked the encrypted message. The room is ready. Bring him at 9:10. My chest tightened not with fear, but with certainty. I walked to the printer and ran off the urgent analytics report he always demanded before major updates. The stack of pages felt heavier than usual, as if they carried the weight of everything these past years had stolen. I returned to his doorway. Graham. Senior leadership scheduled a mandatory meeting. They want the updated figures. He didn't hesitate. Of course they do. Bring everything. I will handle it. He took another long sip of the coffee. Satisfied, victorious, blind. Be ready at 9, I said quietly. He waved me off. Make sure you are prepared. I turned away, the report clutched in my hand, and walked down the hall. In exactly 10 minutes, his arrogance would lead him into the room I had arranged for him, one he never imagined I had the power to fill. At exactly 9:10, I walked 2 steps behind Graham as he strode down the corridor, humming under his breath. The rain streaked the glass wall beside us, blurring the Puget Sound below. He glanced back at me once. Make sure those figures are accurate, he said. Leadership expects perfection. They are ready, I replied. My voice stayed level. He pushed open the meeting room door with the confidence of a man who believed the world bent around him. Then he stopped. His hand tightened on the handle. The room was silent, waiting. At the head of the table sat the head of corporate HR, flown in from San Francisco. Beside her were 2 ethics investigators, Elliot among them, folders open in front of them. A board representative straightened his tie as he met Graham's stunned stare, and at the far end sat 2 former employees Graham had driven out of Cascade, their expressions steady and unflinching. Graham's voice cracked. What is this? The head of corporate HR answered. A review of multiple allegations. Please sit. He didn't move. Elliot tapped his tablet, and an audio clip filled the room. Graham's voice snarled through the speaker. I will end your career if you ever cross me again. Graham lunged forward. That was taken out of context. I was under pressure. The board representative lifted a remote and pressed play on the projector. A hallway camera recording appeared. There was Graham's hand on my wrist, his arm jerking forward, the cup flying, my body recoiling, the team frozen behind us. Graham's face drained. She provoked me. She exaggerated. This is all. The door opened sharply. A young woman stepped inside Kelsey, the former assistant with the thin scar. I am here, she said. And I saw everything he did. Graham's throat worked, but no sound came. The head of corporate HR rose. Graham Wexler, you are suspended immediately pending termination. He stumbled back a step. I met his eyes, steady and calm. You taught me silence, I said, but not the kind you expected. I turned away as his world finally collapsed behind him. By the end of the day, the entire building felt different. Conversations dropped when I walked by. Some people stepped aside quickly, pretending to check their phones. Others caught my eye in the elevator and whispered, "Thank you," before the doors closed, and they hurried out. When my phone buzzed, it was a message from the CEO's assistant asking me to come upstairs. I rode the elevator alone, listening to the quiet hum above my heartbeat. The CEO, Thomas Aldridge, stood when I walked in. Marena, please sit. I remained standing. Is this about Graham's suspension? Yes, he said carefully. And about you. He folded his hands. You handled yourself with professionalism that most people would not have managed. We would like to offer you paid leave to recover." "Paid leave," I repeated. He nodded. "Or if you prefer, you can return immediately. We would also like you to step into a temporary leadership role." I raised an eyebrow. Temporary. Thomas exchanged a glance with the general counsel beside him. "We are creating a new ethics and compliance division. We want you to lead it." Before I could respond, the general counsel added quietly, "HR Director Linda Parson is under formal investigation. What you reported about your deleted complaint was documented. We thank you for your honesty." I felt something inside me loosen, not relief exactly, but a piece of truth finally acknowledged. Thomas continued, "Take your time to decide. No pressure." I left without giving an answer. My car felt too small, the office too close. So I drove to Discovery Park. The wind whipped off the water, carrying that cold, briny sting from the sound. I stood near the overlook and closed my eyes. My mother's rising medical bills, the interns who now walked the hallways without shrinking, the people who had disappeared because of Graham, every piece of it swirled together. For the first time in years, I was not reacting to him. I was choosing what my future would look like. When I walked back into Cascade the next morning, I headed straight to the executive floor. Thomas Aldridge looked up from his desk as I entered. "I have my answer," I said. He nodded once. "We are ready to hear it. I will stay," I told him, "but not as an assistant. I will lead the new compliance division, and I want direct reporting lines to you and the board. No interference from HR." Thomas exchanged a brief look with the general counsel. "Approved." Effective immediately. Word spread quickly. By lunchtime, 3 employees appeared at my door: Nina, Aaron, and Kelsey. They each stood a little straighter than the day before. "We want to join your team," Nina said. "If you'll have us." I stepped aside and let them in. "I will need people who understand what went wrong here. People who care about fixing it." Later that afternoon, a junior engineer named Lila approached me near the break room. She wrung her hands once before speaking. "I almost left the company last month. Graham humiliated me during a design review. I just wanted to thank you for what you did." Her voice cracked, and she hurried away before I could respond. I moved forward with the new rules: no retaliation of any kind, no closed-door discipline meetings, mandatory training for every manager, anonymous reporting lines reviewed weekly. The air inside Cascade shifted. People spoke freely. They laughed more, walked taller. 2 weeks later, the general counsel called me into his office. The board reached a decision. He said, "Graham Wexler is permanently removed from Cascade and barred from holding any leadership position for 5 years. I nodded once, quietly. It was not triumph. It was release. With that final barrier gone, I turned back toward the hallway, ready for whatever came next. 1 month after the investigation closed, I received a message from Graham asking to meet. Elliot warned me not to go, but I said yes anyway. I needed to face him without fear attached to his name. The cafe near Pike Place Market was half full when I arrived. Graham sat in the corner, shoulders slumped, fingers wrapped around a cup he wasn't drinking. When he saw me, he tried to straighten, but the effort fell apart halfway. "Marena," he said quietly, "thank you for coming." I sat across from him. "What do you need?" "Graham," he swallowed hard. "Are you proud of this, of what you did to me?" His voice wasn't angry. It was hollow, as if the echo of the man he'd been had slipped away. I kept my tone even. "I did not destroy you. You did that the moment you believed no one would ever hold you accountable." His jaw twitched. "I gave that company everything. And you expected everyone to give you their silence in return," I said. "That is not leadership." Graham's eyes dropped to the table. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The rain tapped softly against the window behind him, streaking the glass in thin gray trails. I stood, picked up my cup, and placed a few bills on the counter. "Take care of yourself," I said, before turning away. I didn't look back. At Cascade, the atmosphere had changed completely. My compliance department was finally running smoothly. Interns stopped me in the hall to ask questions or pitch ideas. One of the senior engineers paused by my doorway and said, "You changed the temperature of the whole building." I didn't take Graham's old corner office. Instead, I chose a smaller room beside my team. Power never kept anyone safe, I told them. People do. As I shut down my laptop that evening, I thought about the first cup of coffee, the one that burned my skin, and the one I served the next morning, steady as stone. It was never revenge, it was justice. In a world full of men who mistake silence for obedience, I learned the most powerful moment is the one where they finally see the truth, when they step into the room they never saw coming.